Y'alls, we is live again. Hopefully, a little longer this time. Don't know for sure that it will be longer this time. Let's see here. It should be. Edit it. Come on. Save. Alright, now that that's live, waiting for the other part to show that I am live. Oh yeah, and there's something else that I wanted to show you. Not that. Let's see if it'll do it. May have to do that. And then, oh shoot. I gotta pull that off to its own. There we go. Share. That. Yeah. Where'd I put it? There. Alright. Seems that Instagram is having a... Oh, that's why. It might help if I were not running a game in the background. Copy that over here. Edit. Wow. Save. Save. Over here. Oh, you. I gave up on Instagram. We were in the middle of talking about Bitterroots, the thing of looking back. And then, quite literally, in this house, the perspective of looking back was visible. Literally was happening right in front of me. And we get to a particular root of a particular wound. What was really, really unique was that in the face of this horrible moment that had happened, the foundation of why there was so much hurt between him and her is because he had believed a thing about her that wasn't true. And that particular pain plus the hurt became the foundation for every scenario that he was going through. And the problem with that way of doing life was that in the course of what he was presenting, what he was believing, and all the stuff going on, in the course of all of that, the number one thing that that's what's happening. Round two. No, it's in. It's live. What am I talking about? I thought it wasn't live. Let's turn that off. Where's it? There. Let's turn that on. Alright, I'm turning that off. I thought I was not streaming on Instagram. I mean, I was not streaming on YouTube, but yeah, I'm streaming on YouTube. So he thought that she had set someone outside and then locked the door because she didn't care. She thought he was coming back upstairs, and so she put someone out. And then she went back in because she had stuff to do. And so, because there was this perception way that he was seeing, and there was a perception way that she was seeing, and both of the perceptions were lies. How they then managed to survive for the next 2 to 3 years without that event being addressed, I don't know. But we went to the root of why there was so much pain and discovered that the reason there was so much pain is because it was based on a lie. And then I sat down and I showed him, listen, there's some very, very specific things you need to know. And that's why I started out this evening with that particular short, which is, where did I put it? I don't know where I put it. Somewhere. I put it. Oh, I know where to find it. It's right here. In the course of me creating that, let me see if I can share it right quick. Whoa, that's a brightness of bright. Share window. There we go. And it's a little bit more than what I wanted to show, but oh, stop. Stop. So that's first screen right there, right? Then we have this screen. It was fun putting the description up. What if we've all been told, let me move this off to the side. We've all been told what a lie is. But what if I told you God what if I told you that God's standard of a lie is so radically different that it almost seems new? Something God says about you and you don't say the same. That's a lie. Something God doesn't say about you, but you do. That's a lie. God designed you to speak his design over others, and you choose to speak something else. That's a lie. And then I have this all typed out. Boom. Descriptions of an ignorant liar speaks what God doesn't speak what God does, and then says they don't lie. And honestly believes this is true. Remember, when you don't repent, you are like Satan refusing to repent. And that is a little scary. So that's what I was working on today. Did want to show you. Let's see if I can just do it right quick. Come over here. Go to Ko-fi. And am I logged in? I think so. Yeah. Let me go to my blog post and my drafts. And I'm going to share that page. So let's see if I can narrow this up a little. Makes it a little easier to see. Now, this is something that I've been working on in an effort to go beyond what you've ever seen before. This is the 31-day challenge series. As soon as I hit publish, it's going to be published. I'll show you the link. It's the suggested topics. Anger tends to billow and grow and is often called wrath, rage, hatred, and is part of the principality of jealousy. Jesus calls it murder. If you have ever hated anyone for any reason, you are guilty of murder. Let me do that way. There we go. narrower. Constant fatigue does not have to be your mainstay. As part of the sleep slumber principality, this one comes about because of a large combination of activities that God never designed you to participate in. The principality of idolatry is the love of money. Anyone who chases the possibility of being rich for the sake of being rich is not chasing God. If you find yourself, let's see if I can lengthen this any. Well, howdy. Long time no see, stranger. I almost called you by your old name, but I am. Long time. If you find yourself being codependent on everyone else around you, there is the reality that the principality of bondage and addictions is your master. But it doesn't have to be. Is this something you are willing to give up? Say hello to Mrs. Repentance 101. Ever heard of the five-finger discount? This is the best that AI could come up with. The prompt was a shadowy figure looking to case houses, and this is the best AI came up with. Ever heard of the five-finger discount? The idea that if you like it, you can take it comes from the principality of lying. If you are convinced that this is your master, then I cannot stop you from being that. But Jesus can. Anorexia is not something to chase or something to cover up. In the UK alone, some 1.25 million people are struggling to be free from this principality of error. It doesn't have to be you, too. And finally, do you feel as if you've been abandoned? Do you feel fear? Did you know that feeling this way did you know that in feeling this way, you are serving the principality of fear? Holding many millions captive, fear and the feeling of abandonment holds many people captive. But here's the startling truth. In the times when it seems that God has abandoned you, it is actually you that has abandoned him. He is light and cannot shift or change. He cannot walk away from where he is. So, why did you? It's some tough stuff. And I got that as the picture. I did not have uh, a URL just yet. And then, let's see. I'm going to call this the challenge series and publish now. If you'd like to join me in here, oh, come on, give me that. If you'd like to join me in the studio and talk about anything, that's how to do it. But I don't bite. Seriously, I don't bite. How's your gerbil? I think he says a gerbil. I think so. All right. Let me show you how I went about. I made a whole bunch of pictures. So let's see here. Let me Oops, that's not what I want to do. Leave. Come on. I thought that's published. Yeah, it's published on the 8th of April. All right. Let me. No. Let me. Where do I do this? Page. There we go. Let me write a post. Oh, man. I'm sorry to hear that. All right. I may have to go all the way to the... No. It's up here somewhere. Posts. Nope, not that. I'm going to have to make this bigger. Go back. Blog post. There we go. You want to talk about it, Em? I'm right here. Let me do something here. Hey, baby. Question for you. What's the one thing when you were by yourself? I think that's Emily's scenario. How did you start to grow your strength in Christ?
I watch a lot of sermons by people that I feel like Jesus led me to, like Anointed Fire, Tiffany Buckner, or I would watch a lot of sermons to feed my spirit.
My wife is right over there, Em. I can't I can't point the thing. I'm sorry, I can't point the camera that way because.
There's no reason. You just can't do it.
Because the view is for me only. You want to join? Wow. I currently don't have a group of people. You is it right now. But let's see here. This would be. Is that? Did I pin this? Where is my? Let me pin this quick access. There we go. All right. Videos. Grab this. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to ask. Hey, baby. Baby. When you and I first started talking, what had you interest? I know I've asked you this before, but it's been a while. What had you interested in joining the group other than being with your people?
I wanted to learn more about God. I wanted to go deeper with God. That's my main reason.
Okay. All right. What did I I title this other one? It was... Yes. All right. Come back here, put that in. What keeps you, Emily? What keeps you from, like, for instance, do you have a church that you could go to, or is there any like favorite type of church that you have close by? Bring in. Oops, not there. Yeah. And oh, you went to an Episcopal. I'm not sure about that particular way of belief, but if you had to put it in a description, how would you describe the Episcopal Church in comparison to how I teach? I can understand that, and apology is thank you for the apology. But the coolest part about being a content creator is that I'm much more focused on. Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. So what are you bitter about? Like, top. What's the thing that catches you out the most? Let's put that. Oh, I see. I tend to the Tuesdays is a little different because I am much more focused on open topic. Whatever you want to talk about is what I talk about. Had been teaching through I've been teaching through a level of let's see. I've been teaching through the books of James, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John. So I basically went through 6 books of the Bible. And then I also did a focus through February of encountering the love of God and why the love of God was so valuable and why we had to pursue it. But yeah, let's see here. I'm not. Oh, is it usual like that, or because it sounds as if life as a whole just hasn't been so great. And I'm not going to be so quick to say that uh, it is 100%. What's the word I was going to say? Let me precise this. What do I want right here? I'm not going to say it's so much the style of church or the denomination, but I have. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I know it's it. In a way, not in a way, in a huge way, I can relate to you on the fact that it took me 35 years, and I'm not saying this over you, by the way, but it took my dad and I 35 years of me on the earth before we could finally see eye to eye. And a large reason for that was because I did not want to pray for him. And he did not want to stop being bitter. So the both of us were not helping each other. Let's put it that way. Let's see. Checking something. Give me the root. That is. Got it. The principality. Jealousy. If you believe. Oops. So when I finally stopped being that way, which took a while. Hey, baby. Emily says she feels like a liar coming to this live stream because her faith is weak and she doesn't pray or anything. How would you describe that?
Well, I would begin starting with the Bible every day, starting with the New Testament, John. Reading little by little every day, and I would be honest with God and say, Father, my prayer would be something to the effect of, Father, I don't know how to get close to you, but I want to. Can you please show me? I would be honest with the Father and tell him also, Father, I feel like a liar. I believe the best way to pray is to have a conversation with God. That is prayer as well. I do. I would start out with telling him how you feel and ask him to show himself to you and to help you. That is the meaning of a broken and contrite heart. Is coming to him with, I have I have no answers, but I know you are the answers, but I don't know how to get to you. Can you show me how? I think one of the best prayers is asking for help. Jesus for help.
All right, thank you. Kind of in addition to that, switching my mic back over. Probably the number one way. Let me just stop sharing that. The number one way that the familiar spirits will come against us is this thing called identity. And this, above everything else, is by far the most crippling way. It's like I was telling a friend of mine last night. I said, the soul is designed by God to have the nature of God. But then when Adam and Eve decided they want to have knowledge of good and evil rather than having the understanding of God, when they decided they wanted to have knowledge of good and evil, and they began to eat of that instead of the tree of life, what ended up happening was they began to understand life from a perspective that God never designed. And then their soul changed. Instead of their soul only knowing what it meant to be like God, their soul began to understand every person by the evil they were capable of and the good that they were capable of. And so as a result, it didn't really matter how much they wanted to do what God was telling them to do, as long as they understood a perspective about the other individual in both the evil and the good. Their ability to see the good in a person was skewed because they could also see the evil. And it's like a preacher that I was listening to recently. He said, the reason that Adam and Eve did what they did in the garden is because they had the familiar spirit of unbelief. And they had the familiar spirit of sin. And then they had such a level of unbelief about what God was saying, and such a strong belief in what the serpent was saying. And then, thirdly, and this is the part that I didn't really think about, but it makes sense. So they had the strong unbelief about what God said. They had a strong belief about what the serpent said. And then, on top of that, they had a strong belief. And this is about the knowledge of good and evil. They had a strong belief so outside of God's standard, had such a strong belief that they could do what they were gonna do of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and get away with it. Because if they were eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, according to the serpent, they'd be like God. So if they're eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they would be smarter than God. That's what they thought. And then, as soon as God came calling, "Hey, Adam, where are you?" The first thing that he did, he said, "I'm naked," and I'm hiding. God says, "Who told you you were naked?" And he just throws this companion of his that's, made from one of his ribs. He just throws that companion of his right under the bus. Says, "That woman you gave me, she gave me some fruit and I ate it." So God turns to the woman. "What made you eat the fruit?" She said, "That serpent told me." Here's a unique thing about those who are trying to come to terms with the reality that they live in bitterness and they don't know how to be rid of it. Oh, come on, you're not supposed to be disconnecting from my channel. Come back. Come back. Where'd he go? Um Says it's there. I can hear myself saying come back. Uh, the perspective of the person who realizes that there's some level of something going wrong. And you did it, by the way. I'm pretty sure you didn't even mean to. I haven't met too many people on my channel that purposely threw someone under the bus. Very often, and this, by the way, is the result of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Even though we don't have the physical tree in front of us, generationally, we're like taught from one generation to the next generation, we are taught how to walk in that tree. Whether anyone is physically eating from that tree right now, it's generationally taught how to do that. You threw your mama under the bus. Because, you're recognizing that you are walking in bitter, you got some bitterness. And so you said that the reason why you was bitter was because your mama. That's what Adam did. Instead of Adam saying what he did to contribute, he pawned off the reason to somebody else. That is fruit of knowledge of good and evil. You recognize what you recognize what you are feeling, and you recognize what the evil of somebody else has done. That's the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. Which, by the way, I have not met too many people that don't know the Bible that will say, "You know what, I'm feeling this way because of what I did." I have not met very many people. I've met maybe in my total life, I've met maybe 10 people. out of the couple 100,000. Mm, yeah. Hey, just a curiosity. And it works whether you're on your phone or tablet or whatever. I've used my own phone. Here's the best part: you do not have to be on camera. Just like no camera for audio, unless you're like in a really noisy environment and you don't want to share the audio of your background. Then that would make sense. Yeah, the YouTube is, but you come into the restream, you'd be talking directly to me. Come here, I don't bite. Let's see. Not that. Give me this. That link right there. I don't bite that hard. And in the words of Rick, uh, he he does bite, but he doesn't bite very hard. He's talking about me. Okay. So, the scenario. I'll tell you a story. I very rarely tell this story on. I mean, it not very rarely. It's been a long time since I've shared this other story. Let's see if I can. Uh, let's see if I have objects to represent. Um, this, and this. I forget what this is for. This. All right. So, got some objects here. Gonna call these characters. Yeah, that's a little extra. Let me find something that's not so extra. All right. So, toenail clippers. For the purpose of this story, the toenail clippers is my friend Darius. Um, this strange connector because Marlon, who by the way was on my channel last week, before last week I hadn't talked to him for about 12 years. This little connector is to represent my friend Marlon. So here's Darius, here's Marlon, and then this fitting here I'm going to call Frank. So I wanted to sit and talk with Marlon. And in this area where Marlon where Marlon, Darius, and Frank were sitting. I do it like this. There was only enough room for one other person to sit. Now, Darius was the youngest of all of them. He was 19. Then it was Marlon, who was 29. And then it was Frank, who was 38. I, at the time, was 28. And then there's another kid who had a really short temper. And I have just the right piece for the short temper. Oh, shoot, where'd he go? No! You're supposed to... I'm going to call this Q-tip. I'm going to call this Q-tip the guy with the really short temper. So there's only enough space for Darius, Marlon, and Frank to sit in this little, almost like cubicle. I wanted to come in and talk with Marlon. Now, I was also very good friends with Darius and Frank. And then there's this other guy. I forget what his name is. I'm going to call him Josh. Josh had a super short temper. Josh wanted to come in and talk with Darius. So Josh and Darius were friends. Josh didn't really like Marlon, but he could kind of tolerate him. Josh didn't know Frank at all, and if he knew Frank, could barely tolerate Frank at all. But for sure, Josh and I did not get along at all. So I couldn't really. So these three are sitting together, and I come in and I sit right next to them. These three are kind of sitting in a corner, and I'm sitting there, and here I'm sitting here, and I'm talking to them, and these are like my favorite guys from this place I was at. Here comes Josh. He's like, "Hey Norm, could you please, like bounce? I want to talk with Darius." Now, up to this point, whenever he said he wanted to talk, I just go. And he got used to me just going whenever he came into the mix, because I didn't want to have any beef with him. But today, because I hadn't seen these three for quite a long time, there's various tasks that I was being tasked to, so I couldn't talk with Darius, couldn't talk with Marlon, and I couldn't talk with Frank. So I'm here. Here comes Josh. Hey Norm, can you bounce? I want to talk with Darius. I didn't move. Norm, please leave. I want to talk with Darius. I said nothing. I did nothing. He starts losing his head. He's like, "Get the bleep out of my way. I want to talk to Darius." Darius says, "Hey, Norm, Josh, he wants to come talk to me." I said, "If it weren't for the fact that he's the newest guy in the whole place, and the fact that he's so incredibly impatient about everything, I'd let him come in and talk. But because he practically just shoves people around, I'm not that quick to just let him in and, whatever he wants to talk about." And so Darius says to Josh, says, "Yeah, Josh, you and I have been kind of hanging out a whole lot, and I haven't been. The Darius is talking. I haven't really been hanging out with Norm all that much. Can we catch up later?" Josh completely loses his head. He takes his shirt off. He is sweating profusely. He's like, "I'm going to literally beat you through the wall. Get the bleep out of that chair. I want to bleep and talk to to Darius." Frank says, if you two don't cut it out, I'm going to smash both of your heads into the wall." Marlon says one thing: "Thank God." And that's the whole thing that he said in that whole whatever. Meanwhile, I still haven't said anything except, telling Darius that I have been waiting a long time to talk with Darius and Marlon and Frank, and I'm not leaving. Josh gets so short with me that he is now smacking the wall, which, by the way, is made of concrete, and leaving welts on his own skin, talking about how he is literally going to punch me through the wall if I don't get out of the chair that he wants to sit in. And that is when I lost mine. And I told him, I said, "You think you are just so big because you got all the people just stepping up out of your way whenever you come by." I said, "Listen, Josh, the reason they all stepping out of your way is because they ain't stupid. They recognize that you got a whole lot of problems on your plate. They recognize that you ain't willing to listen. And so because you ain't willing to listen, they ain't willing to stay in your lane, to stay where you don't want them to be. They're willing to step up out of your way. And you think that means that you're the boss around here. That's the lowest. If people are just stepping out of your way, it means they don't even have the time of day to respect you, to ask you what's going on. If they don't step up to you and ask you what's going on, what's the issue, what's happening with you, they don't care about you because you show you don't care about them. And further, I said, "Josh, you're making this big huge fuss as if there was something terrible happening, but I can tell you just want to talk to Marlon for a little bit. I got seniority. Out of you four, I've been here the longest. And then you come in here pushing people around like you got some type of amazing genie in a bottle. You just, I'm not saying it exactly this exact way of how it happened because there's a lot of cuss words in it and I don't want to cuss on my live stream. I said, you have this idea that it's just you that's got all this going on, but everybody got a lot of stuff going on. And if you're so focused on all the stuff you got going on, then you can't possibly see what someone else is going through. And then this whole reason that you get so worked up is because you don't care. And when you don't care, you also can't love. If you can't love, it's obvious that even while the tree of knowledge of good and evil is for both good and evil, the only thing you can see is evil. So there is a real big question in the works as to why you don't care about the people that's around you. Now, in the span of time of me talking to Josh, he went from sweating profusely and pacing to no longer pacing to put his shirt back on to standing next to the wall to sitting on the floor. It's like, whoa, Norm, I did not know you could talk that much. I was like, that's because you didn't care to have a conversation. You thought it was just about you. You thought you was number one. And because nobody else talked to you, you thought that was just the way it is. But in this space, which, by the way, that particular space was a homeless shelter. In this space, if people don't talk to you, it's because you are showing them by your own example how you want to be treated. In that particular shelter, the concept was each person was in the state of difficulty that they were in because they didn't want to admit that the reason they were stuck in that mess is because of they had done. The phrase was, you came to this shelter because of your mess. The moment that you recognize it was your mess and you recognize it by saying, I got in here because of my mess, then we can help you. Until you actually say those words, we can't help you. And you have a permission to stay here for 30 days. If in those 30 days you can't find the strength to say you were here because of your own mess up, bye. And some guys would say, I'm here because of my own mess up. And then they'd be put into a 6-month program. And part of that 6-month program would be to forgive every person who stepped on their toes, every person who hurt their feelings, every person who did something that was highly egregious, every person who, in one way or another, made sure that individuals who got messed up, they were at the bottom of the totem pole for everything. But every person in the 6-month program had to forgive everyone. So part of that, 6-month program was a 7 keys to renewal, forgiveness being one of the keys. So I had gone through the 7 weeks and flunked because I didn't want to forgive. I believed incorrectly that I could just fake it until it got to that part, and I'd just fake it, and they'd just let me go. No. I faked it until I got to that part of forgiveness, and then, wild but true, I tried to fake it on the forgiveness. And then flipped out on one of the guys. There's three there's 3 in my class. And of the 3, I flipped out on the one guy because he kept coming to me and borrowing my answers so that he could get by on the tests. He was constantly borrowing my answers, and I was so fed up. I blew up about how he is he's doing this and 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 I had such a huge list of things that James Gray was doing. The teacher's like, you said that you forgave everybody else, but you didn't forgive James, so you flunked. Oh, and part of this 7-week thing, I was restricted to a building where I couldn't leave this building except for church. And then it was like monitored. But I could not leave that building for 49 days. And so when I flunked it, they didn't count those 49 days that I'd already had. Mm-mm. I had to do those 49 days again. Yeah. So I was doubly. But I'm glad that I was kept that second time, because I was in a much larger group. This time there was 20 people, 20 guys in the same group, and I was in that group, and I remember the 20 guys were all sitting in. Give me a moment. Ah, no, sorry, my stuff's falling. I was in the room, and there's these other 18 guys that were all, or the other 20 guys that were all sitting in what was called the TV room. And they were all sitting there. They were belly aching about being confined to the premises of how they wanted to go out and do their own thing, and now they're being stuck. And I was just sitting there, and they all had their opinion of what was happening, and they got to my turn to speak, and I said, "Y'all are pussies." I said, "Y'all are pussies. Y'all are wimps. You don't even know what a real restriction is yet." And no, I don't have kids. Um, live with a family, and they got kids. But it's funny though. All the guys are like, "Whoa, Norm! We've never heard language like that from you before." And one of the other guys is in there, and they said, "Oh, you don't know? Yeah, y'all are belly aching because you've been restricted to the grounds for 10 days. This is his 59th day being restricted. Y'all are pussies." And that second round, I was confronted with that whole thing where I didn't want to forgive. I didn't want to let go. And as my wife said earlier today, it takes a lot more energy to try to remember everything that we've gone through, and every reason why we want to stay bitter. It takes way more energy to do that than it does to just give it over to God. And this is something that I've been telling my wife for quite a long time. The thing about bitterness is that it literally takes energy, physical energy, takes physical energy out of your body to remain bitter. So, the one thing that I have learned about, I'm just kind of curious on something. Let me check. Uh, the kid is quite loud. Da-da-da. Did you leave my Telegram group? I don't see the familiar picture. I'm very curious what the screaming is for. I'll be right back. I'd be able to help you out on a whole bunch of stuff if you were there. Send me a message. I promise you, I'll send you something that would help you out where you are. 100%. Um, but it's the thing about, you know, living with people who don't know how to treat you right. Hmm. I was in that scenario. I was literally stuck in that way, in that scenario for about, let's see, I got my own house at the age of 34. So the first 34 years of my life, I was basically stuck living in places where very few people actually cared about me feeling good or having a level of being treated correctly. As a result, I would have to, I would pretty well have to force a way of telling people this is how I want to be treated. And then very often I'd say it so rudely that the only thing they'd really remember is the rudeness of how much I'd say rather than how I wanted to be treated. And it didn't it didn't work. Hmm. I don't see your username. I see a G Dust, but it's not. It's some Russian dude. So I know it's not you. Um. Wow. Okay. I think your best bet. Um. Your best bet. Um. Could be. Let me see what the settings are. Um. Do do. Yeah, if you are away from it for 3 months, it deletes it. You can set it for 1 month, 2 month, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year and a half, or 2 years. But I've been using this since 2017. I've been using Telegram for 8 years. That's scary. Um, Here's what I would like you to do. Just make a new one. Send me a message here. Oh, it's actually the same as the YouTube. The same. It's this literally at Repentance 101. Send me a message. I'm going to send you my book for free. I want you to read it one chapter at a time. There's 22 chapters. I want you to read it, and I'm going to be checking because you remind me of someone just in the way that you in the messages that you sent. And there was a time that I was connected to a gal named Pixie, and she was a pixie. She wasn't. She wasn't a little person. She she was an individual who had been born with some major birth defects. One of them, um, her I forget which gland it is that is key to being able to grow. Um, Her biological father was a horrible man, absolutely horrible man. When he discovered that the girlfriend that he was with was pregnant, he would beat her almost daily, making sure to punch the womb. And so as a result, Pixie grew up with a few birth defects, a few places in her arms and legs where there was literally a missing bone. And so when she was born a preemie. That's one thing. But also, she was born at 3 pounds, a couple ounces, born 12 weeks early. And her mother didn't survive. So she was taken in by the aunt, and the CPS found out about everything that had happened, and so they sued. They took her father to court for all of the abuse that he had put onto the mother to the point that the mother died. And so he was put into maximum security prison for 15 years. And so when she's 15, he got out. What? Oh, give me one moment. Now I got a timer. Now I have to be done in a half hour. But in the course of me getting to know Pixie, wasn't her real name. That's her. Um, Pixie was very curious about things that other teenagers did, like go out to parties and drink and have sex. Pixie got pregnant at the age of 14, and she's already undersized. And her womb was not completely there. The the fetus survived for about 8 weeks, and then she had a miscarriage because she really was not she was not physically fit to have a baby. so she miscarried, and I was the shoulder she cried on. But here's where it got a little interesting. I didn't know her in person. I got her to know her through a chat site, and in the middle of me being so outside of God's will or God's design for what to do in life, I still walked her through the process of forgiving her father. And she forgave him. And I walked her through the process of forgiving herself when she had a miscarriage. That was pretty tough. And then we got the news that her uh, father had been released. And then she disappeared. And I've never seen her since. I suppose part of it would be she's in witness protection. The only individual I ever connected with that was in witness protection. So I only got to see her through a webcam. She's so incredibly tiny. Pixie literally fit her username. But she was being guarded 24/7 by Navy SEALs because of how dangerous her father was. And when her father was released, the first thing that he did was try to get her, was to come say, to claim that he forgiven her, that he was apologetic about everything, claimed that he came to see her. And then when she came out of the house, he guns the engine of the vehicle he's in and tries to run her over. And the SEAL had to shove her out of the way. She's basically this very small person with a whole lot of bones sticking out in places it shouldn't stick out. It is a prayer of mine that God would show me where Pixie went, but I don't know. I don't even know if she's still alive. And for a long time after that, I asked God why He would connect me to someone that had such a hard life. I thought my life was hard, and then I met Pixie, and then I heard her story, and her story made certain that I did not even have a hard life. I haven't yet had a hard life compared to Pixie. And this is the first time that I've talked about her on this channel. I did make a bit of music for her. I wonder if I can find it. What is that? wonder if I could do this. Put this there. Put this over here. Back over here. Switch this to that. Oh yeah, kind of works if I plug it in. Let's see. Be right back. Switching mics. Oh, it is switched. Checking this strange sound. That's all I got. I wasn't quite sure how it's going to sound, but yeah. It's not quite the piano piece that I had. It's not quite exactly what I had recorded, and what I had recorded was a much bigger piece with a much bigger piano. But my wife has said I should play the piano, record, do that as a content creation. Maybe I will. But yeah. I will await your message on Telegram. Then I got a book for you that I wrote. And by the way, let me just kind of set the tone for the book. Wrote the first one in 2016, and it's about the way in which I saw that God had laid out for us to be in dominion of the entire earth. But I keep thinking that's my mic. That's my camera, sorry. The way in which God wrote for us to be in dominion of the earth, and how Satan stole that away from humanity. The second book is about some of the difficulties that I went through trying to get to where I am now. That was written in 2018. And then a whole 6 years goes by before I can write the third book. And the third book is me mostly writing about the type of lessons that I learned in 2022. And then in the summer of 2024, I went back to all three books, and I wrote in the sections for the places where it says stepping back from the book. And what I wrote in those sections is the stuff that I had learned about life since the first time that I wrote the book. And the level of understanding that I had about life later, much deeper than when I was going through it. And I think that you will gain perspective. You know, where you are right now. And all the stuff that has been happening for you. I think you would benefit from having a perspective of where life could be versus where it is right now. So, I got to jet. I have a phone appointment with a very good friend of mine. I need to pick his brain on something, but I'll be back on Thursday, and we'll be talking about the bitterness thing again. In fact, all of April. This month is for you, Emily. This whole month, I'm going to be talking about the top 15 ways in which most relationships struggle. Most relationships have a difficulty of existing because of these 15 relationship killers. So, stick around. Send me a message. And I'll see you on Thursday. Alrighty. Hey, thanks for talking with me too. Makes it so much easier to talk to a screen when their screen talks back. All right, good night.